Hello everyone and welcome to Game 7 of the World Chess Championship match between the challenger Gukesh of India and the champion Ding Liren of China. Now, those of you that have seen the match and the game and the games so far know what's been going on. It's been a pretty crazy match. Both players have won one game, but the score is a tie after 6 games. And this Game 7 is basically what we expect Game 6 to be every World Chess Championship match. Now, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a pretty long video, so let's dive straight into it let's check it out. Now, everyone, again, was commenting on will it be an e4? Will Ding once again go for the French defense? Maybe Gukesh prepared something else for the French defense. But no, Gukesh said knight to f3. Let's go for the Reti opening and no more French for Ding. So what can Ding play to Gukesh's Reti? He goes for pawn to d5, the most classical way to challenge the Reti. Pawn to g3 and pawn to g6 now. Fianchettoing the dark square bishop, much like Gukesh does with the light square bishop, and pawn to d4. Claiming the center, we have bishop to g7 and pawn to c4. We have pawn to c6 and bishop to g2. We have knight to f6 and now castles kingside. We have castles kingside by Gukesh and rook to e1. We have d captures on c4, and the position has been reached before, but before we check that out, I would just like to show you a photo of the handshake before the game because I forgot as I'm too excited about showing you this game. Again, no eye contact, just, a nice casual handshake. And as the game progresses and the position builds up, more and more eye contact happens throughout the game. But yeah, D captures on c4. And there is a game where knight to a3 was played. It's this entire line, and maybe to signal the importance of rook to e1, because before rook to e1 many games have been played with this exact same position. Pretty much c captures and d5 is an automatic, and then you continue knight to c3 and so on. But here rook to e1 was there is no record of it ever being played in a serious game. Last time it was played, it was in 1999, 25 years ago, in a game between, I'm just going to check it out real quickly, Alexander Shribel with white playing Anton Milenerich. Yeah, and it was 1936, not the year, the player ratings, 1936 versus 2184. So definitely not something you see in a top-level chess game. But yeah, rook to e1. Gukesh definitely surprised Ding, and the Ding goes into a think here. And he plays d captures on c4 after spending some half an hour on the clock. There is a game in that one game that we mentioned, knight to e3 was played, but here we have pawn to e4, and now already as of move 8 we have a completely new game. So okay, bishop to g4. Ding continues development, and we have knight b to d2. Again, Gukesh playing instantly, you see that he has this prepared, spending less than 2 minutes on the clock. We have pawn to c5 by Ding, and now pawn to d5, something that you would see maybe in a Benoni structure. We have pawn to e6 and now pawn to h3. And this is a very interesting move by Gukesh because it asks a lot of questions. The real tricky move comes after knight captures on c4. Probably the reason why Gukesh decided to go pawn to h3. Now we can just trade here on d5. Let's say captures, the queen captures, knight captures, and now knight to g5 opens up an attack on the knight. And if you move the knight, the b7 pawn is hanging, which is always a problem when you face the so-called Catalan bishop. But now let's say knight b4, bishop captures on b7, knight to c2 with a nice fork here, and after let's say rook to e7, you will see knight to d7. And now after bishop captures on a8, bishop to f6, a lot of Zwischenzugs here, knight captures on f7, bishop captures, and now knight to h6 with check. King moves, you will capture the bishop, knight captures on a1, and as the bishop on a8 is still hanging, something like bishop to e4, preventing the knight from escaping, and you have a really, really crazy position. So it is possible Not a lot you can go for with white here. Plus, it solves the position pretty much instantly, and well, Gukesh doesn't want to spend the white pieces to instantly solve opening problems. So pawn to h3. This poses a lot more problems for Ding. He has the capture on f3 as e6 has been played. So bishop captures on f3, and now bishop captures on f3. Other captures are possible. I can quickly show you. If knight captures on f3, the idea is that after a trade here, captures, captures, and captures, you can go bishop g5. And after, let's say, bishop f6, you will trade, and once knight captures, knight to e5, really open up that bishop, and queen c7, let's say you defended that. Knight captures on c4, and now after knight to c6, you'll play queen to d6. And white is the one always putting pressure. Doesn't matter if white is down a pawn, down 2 pawns, that light square bishop is just magnificent. Let's say captures, captures. Now I have to play something like rook 8 to b8, and okay, the game continues. Black is up a pawn, but white is the one who's always pushing in these positions. Queen captures on f3 is another possibility, but again, not much to be said about this. Let's say rook to e8. Now, okay, if the position opens up, the rook on e1 will be hanging. Maybe rook to d1. And now after e captures, now you will play knight b to d7, and the game continues. Some of the tricks in the position arise if you actually capture on d5, but then knight captures on c4, and now you can just resign. There's no defense here. So after bishop captures on f3, Gukesh plays bishop captures on f3, e captures by Ding, e captures, and now knight b to d7. Again, much better than capturing on d5, even though by capturing on d5 here, it's not as bad, because after knight captures, you can play this bishop to d4 move, but then again, you have to be okay with giving up the exchange after bishop to h6. You, of course, cannot go rook to e8, because if you do that, then bishop captures on d5, and after some trades here, queen captures, queen to e8 will be checkmate. So something to consider. So of course you're not looking to save your pawn. Knight b to d7, knight captures on c4, and pawn to b5, and Ding is feeling very much okay here. He's down to an hour on the clock, but okay, you've played c5, you've played b5, you do have the passed d pawn to worry about, but I mean, that's why you're the world champion, to worry about stuff. And knight to a3. Showing that Gukesh has maybe not seen this exact position on the board, but definitely the ideas, because if you go knight to e5, it's very easy for Ding to just play knight to e8 and free up the dark square bishop. And now you have to play rook e2 to control the b2 pawn, and after knight d6, something like bishop to f4, Ding already plays pawn to c4, and I mean, this knight comes to b7 to c5 to d3. Doesn't look like something you want to do. So knight to a3 attacks b5, and queen to b6 by Ding. We have bishop to f4, also will help out with the defense of the d6 square, rook f to e8, and queen to d2. Gukesh playing very natural moves here. He says, if you capture on e1, I'm just going to recapture. I'm not going to burn any tempi, playing some rook c1 or rook to d1. We have rook a to d8, and now knight to c2. Again, better than playing something like rook a to d1, because then, of course, Ding would just trade, forcing Gukesh to waste a move. And d6, while it might not be a terrible idea, it's maybe a bit too forcing, and you free up the, for example, e6 square for the knight. So let's say something like knight f8, rook a to d1, knight to e6, and it's perfectly fine for black. The bishop is hanging. If bishop to e5, you can even throw in a knight d4, and now you just have to trade for no good reason. Captures, captures, and let's say queen to b4, but you're never going to be able to defend that d6 pawn. Something like, obviously not that. Rook captures, rook captures, rook captures, and you lose that pawn. So d6, while it is an idea, long term, we're not gonna just play it right away. So here we have knight to c2 and knight to f8 by Ding. He says, all right, the knight is very nicely placed there. If you play d6, knight to e6 is coming. And now Gukesh has to figure out how to continue. Does he play rook a to d1? Does he play some sort of a slow a3 move? No, he plays the best move in any position, and that, of course, is pawn to b4. Asking Ding, what do you play here? Do you advance the pawn to c4, or do you go for some crazy c captures on b4 idea? For example, if c captures on b4, knight captures on b4, knight to e4, attacking the queen and opening up an attack towards the rook. Bishop captures on e4, let's say bishop captures on a1, and now knight to c6, attacking the rook here. And after rook to c8, something like bishop to e3, attacking the queen on b6, and after the queen moves, well, we get this insane position with the, let's say, this bishop hanging, you can move the bishop back, black moves the bishop back, and the game continues with Gukesh having the bishop pair and the passed pawn, but the Ding being up the exchange. So that's one way Ding can do it, but Ding is never one that goes after material, so Ding just goes pawn to c4. He says, keep your material, I like my dark square bishop, and now bishop to e3. Again, you could trade, but Gukesh already said we're not gonna trade too quickly. And now queen to a6. Queen to b7 is also very interesting because the bishop on f3 is undefended, so maybe you can throw in something like queen b7 and knight to e6 as it's undefended, but then king g2 will defend the bishop, so it is very tricky. It's not a bad move or anything, but yeah, queen to a6 first, preparing queen to a4, and then pawn to a5 by Ding. We have bishop to d4, and now we have rook captures on e1. Here Ding was already down to 24 minutes on the clock, and while there are some other moves like maybe knight 8 to d7, we can show them quickly. I mean, this is so complicated that 240 minutes on the clock will not help you, let alone 24. Queen f4, and now after queen to a4, look at this. Knight to e3, queen captures on b4, sure, why not? Pawn to a4, and now after b captures on a4, you will go rook e to b1, and after the queen moves, now you will play rook to b2, and it seems like black is in big trouble, but there is this beautiful pawn to g5 move, where if the queen captures, then the d4 bishop is undefended, and you have nothing better than to trade here. Rook captures, g captures on f4, and so on and so on. Something like knight to e4, bishop captures, rook captures, attacks the bishop, bishop captures, king captures, rook captures on a4, and basically we trade down into a very simple endgame with equal material, as you know, all chess games are supposed to be. But after bishop to d4, we have rook captures on e1, rook captures on e1, and now queen captures on a2. Ding grabs the pawn, but he knows that rook to a1 is coming. So what did he prepare? Look at this, rook to a1, and here we reach a position where the move that follows and the consequences that it carries are some of the most beautiful I've seen, not only in this championship, but in, you know, it was this sequence that I'm about to show you is more beautiful than the game. So what's the point? The point is that Ding played queen to b3, and that is not the move that you should play here. Do you see the move that Ding should play here? It's not easy to spot it. In fact, it's incredibly difficult to spot it. The tricky move is pawn to c3, because now, the fun stuff happens not if queen captures on c3, even though it's important to discuss that. Knight captures on d5, attacks the queen, and now after, let's say, bishop captures on d5, bishop captures on d4, attacks the white queen, you will capture a pawn, you know, just to grab a pawn, and after the queen captures on f7, knight captures on d4, and now you will force a queen trade, something like captures, knight to c6, attacks the rook, and after the rook moves, you will pick up that pawn, and again, you have this endgame where you're up a pawn. So, and it's a draw, it's not nothing serious. But the real trick is after pawn to c3. What happens if Gukesh doesn't capture the pawn? What if he plays queen to d3? Look at this. Queen to b3, and now after rook to a3, queen to b1 check, and after king to h2, knight to g4 with check. And after h captures on g4, bishop captures on d4. And look at this. I mean, just look at this, how disgustingly beautiful this is. You cannot play knight captures because queen captures queen. And the only reason it's possible is because c3 was played and the rook is not defending the queen. So you would have to play queen captures, and then queen captures on c2, and then, okay, rook captures on c3, queen b2, and so on and so on. But now black has all the available resources to play this game. However, after queen to b3, without pawn to c3 included, now Gukesh throws in a rook a3, queen to b1 check, king to g2, and rook to d7. Defending the pawn here, but now rook to a5. How do you defend here? There was a great opportunity for Gukesh to blunder the game here with knight to e3 and then knight e4, and you resign here. There's nothing you can play, because if bishop captures, you will capture with the queen, deliver a check, and then the bishop on d4 hangs, and if you move the queen, then you lose the b4 pawn, and then two connected pass pawns will win the game. But Gukesh plays the absolute best move, rook to a5, and it's only move 26. They still need to make 14 more moves to reach time control, and Ding already down to 15 minutes. So here we have queen to b3, Rook to a3, Gukesh repeats once again, queen to b1, rook to a5, and now queen to b3, rook captures on b5. We have queen to d3, offering a trade of queens, and now queen to f4. Here, bishop to e3 is objectively strongest for Gukesh, because if Ding ever trades queens, his position is, well, just lost. There is no weakness in Gukesh's position. The d5 pawn is defended, and it's only a matter of time before bishop to a3 and rook to a5 are played, and you capture that pawn. Of course, that's easier said than done, because when you're playing against a player like Ding, you will have to suffer immensely before you can prove that. But it was definitely the way to go. Gukesh played queen to f4. And now Ding played queen captures on c2. Again, g5 was the way to go here. And I know it's a lot of lines for you guys to process, but it's so beautiful. h6 and after the queen moves, because if you now go back to f4, then knight to g6, and you get another tempo on the queen. So the queen has to go back, and now pawn to c3. And this, I mean, it's possible to calculate it if if you have the soul of silicon, but if not, I'm just gonna have to show it to you. Knight captures on d5, and after bishop c5, putting pressure on the knight here, queen to d2, captures, and now after bishop to d1, it seems like you're almost winning. Knight to c3, but knight e3 holds. And it will be, well, Gukesh who is pushing. But it was definitely the way to go. Here, queen captures on c2 was played, bishop captures on f6, and now queen to f5. Much better than capturing on f6. Queen captures, pawn captures, and now bishop captures on g7. Again, maybe a premature capture by Gukesh, but again, what I'm about to show you takes way more than 13 minutes. Gukesh has to calculate. Bishop to g5. And now the point is, after c3, as it is nicely defended there, bishop to d1, pawn to a6, you will chase away the rook, rook a5, let's say knight to g6, rook captures, and now bishop to b3, rook to d4. You go after the b4 pawn, and after rook to a8 with check, bishop to f8, look at this, bishop to h6, now the knight cannot move, and you know what's coming, h4 and h5. And now after rook captures on b4, pawn to h4, you cannot capture the bishop, h5 just wins you the game, so you have to play rook to b6. It's a very tricky move. Threatens knight to h4, a discovered check, and then to win the bishop. So you have to move the king, and now after pawn to f4, pawn to h5 captures on b3 now, h captures on g6, f captures with check, f captures, h captures, and now after rook captures, you will move the king, and you will have to play this being down a bishop, but okay, up 2 pawns, it's still playable, and you will have your chance at a draw. But after the g captures on f5, bishop captures on g7 was played right away. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, who knows. These are such long lines, and they're good if you play well, they're not good if you're not playing well. King captures on g7, rook to c5 now, and knight to g6. We have rook captures on c4, knight to e5 now, attacking the rook and the bishop, rook to d4, and now a beautiful move by Ding. The only move that keeps him in the game, knight to c6. Now Gukesh has to decide, does he want to keep the b4 pawn, or does he want to give it up? Probably giving it up with something like captures and d6 is the way to go, because the knight cannot move now. But Gukesh decides to keep the pawn, at least for the moment. He plays rook f4, and now knight to e7, defending on f5. We have pawn to b5, stopping any knight to c6 ideas in the future, but now king f6. We have rook to d4. G4 here looks nice, but then king e5. The rook is undefended. So rook to d4. We have pawn to h6, and now king to f1. Pawn to d6 doesn't work because knight to c8, and Ding is perfectly fine. So here after h6, we have king to f1, and now king to e5. And this is move 40. Ding needs to make one more move. He has 3 minutes to reach time control, and he plays the incorrect move. He plays king e5. The way to play this was knight to c8. And the point is now that, let's say king e2 is played, you go knight to d6, put pressure on the pawn, and after rook to h4, going after the h6 pawn, You defend it, and only now you go rook to a4, and now after rook to b7, you will go rook to a6, seemingly winning the knight, but not really. Rook to b6, and now after captures, you will capture on b5, and after, let's say, rook a5, you will block again, and this is fine. Okay, you're up a pawn, down a pawn as Ding, but it's a playable position. After king to e5, Ding reaches time control, additional half an hour is added to his clock, also increment is installed now, but the position is now well, dire to say you know, the least. Rook to h4, and now the king cannot go back to defend the pawn here. You can go rook to d6 or knight to f8, but you know, capturing the past d5 pawn, it's an opportunity Ding does not want to pass up on. So he plays knight captures on d5, rook captures on h6, and now knight to c3. Goes after the b5 pawn. Rook to c6, beautiful by Gukesh. Probably the move that Ding missed in his, you know, looking forward some 15 moves ago, because now if you capture the pawn, rook c5, and you blunder the knight. So after rook to c6, knight back to e4, and now we have king to e1 by Gukesh. Another suboptimal move, but I mean, this position is so crazy that it's impossible to find all of them. King to e2 is the move you have to play, because your king simply is much closer to the action. You play king e2, and now even with best defense, rook to d5, you will go rook c7, and after rook captures on b5, you will trade on e4, and after captures and captures, there's nothing for Ding here. For example, pawn a5, pawn to h4, and if you try pushing again, then just rook a7. You're not in time to get the rook behind your passed pawn, and the king will just go all the way here, and then you start pushing those pawns, and it's easily winning. But I mean, not easy to spot. Gukesh's move also makes a lot of sense because it allows the bishop to e2 to defend the b5 pawn, but Ding does not go for the move probably that Gukesh was calculating. Probably Gukesh was calculating rook to d5, as that is the key idea, but Ding plays pawn to f6. And what is this? Pawn to f6, such a tricky move that it is losing for Ding, but again, very hard to spot. Here Gukesh played pawn to h4. I will just show you the line that wins because there are so many this game. Rook to c8, and the reason why is that after rook to b7, you will play bishop captures on e4, and after king captures, rook c5. Again, you are tricking black so hard. The rook cannot go back, the pawn is defended, and only active idea you have is pawn to f4, and if black does that, rook to c4 check. King e5, you will capture on c5, and now after rook captures on b5, you will play rook to a4, and now after a5, okay, the pawn is defended, but now g4, you get the king into the game, you start pushing the h-pawn, and black cannot do anything. The rook has to stay here guarding the a5 pawn. If you do that, you have an inactive rook, and it's going to be easily winning. But after f6, Gukesh played pawn to h4. He even burned 10 minutes on this move. Now we have rook to d3 by Ding, and bishop to d1. Captures or bishop to e2 was probably stronger, but Gukesh is still playing for the win here, even though Ding's pieces are becoming, well, suspiciously active. Ding strikes with pawn to f4. G captures with check, king captures, and now we have bishop to c2. This was a pretty crazy moment because there were so many lines to consider. I'm just going to show you, for example, pawn to f3, crazy line. Rook e3 check, king f1, knight to c3, and now white has nothing better than to give up the bishop. You will play king g2, and after knight captures, you will capture on f6 with check, and simply gobble up all of the pawns. King to e5, rook to e6, you go after the a pawn, rook b3, you capture on a7, for example, rook captures on b5, and okay, black is up a knight, but you have two pawns. This will be a draw. Another most interesting maneuver is rook to c4, and the idea that Ding saw this is just mind-boggling. The idea is that rook to h3, how do you stop f3 and the loss of a full piece here? Well, f3, rook to h1 check, king e2, and now you just play rook to h2 with check. And Gukesh would have no other option than to repeat and go for a perpetual, because if you go king d3, rook to d2 is checkmate. This is what Ding found. So after king captures on f4, bishop to c2 was played, and now rook to d5 and rook to c4. It seems like you're losing the knight, but now there's pawn to f5. Compliments of the pawn being on f6. Also, you could do it if the pawn was on f5, but you know, just looks very cool. We have rook to b4, defending on b5, and king to f3 now. We have bishop to d1 with check, king to g2. Again, Ding's pieces becoming increasingly active here. We have rook to b3, and now comes rook to e5, threatening all sorts of nasty discoveries. And while rook to e3 can be played, it runs into knight captures on f2. And now after rook captures, knight d3 check, king goes somewhere, you're going to capture, and h5. It's okay, you can still play it, but it's a draw. So after rook e5, pawn to f4. Gukesh still looking for ways to win this. We have rook to e7, rook to e3, getting the rook in between the rook and king. Rook to h7 going after the h-pawn, and of course pawn to h5. Gukesh is now below the 1 minute mark, but he's playing engine moves here. Knight to f6 goes after the pawn, rook to e5, and now knight captures on h5. We have rook captures on f5, and now knight to g3. You have to be careful. If you give an ill-considerate check here, rook e5, and you can resign. Now the knight is attacked twice, and you have no option but to trade, and if you trade, the endgame is winning for white. So after rook captures on f5, knight to g3 was played, and now rook to f8. Preparing to advance the past f-pawn, rook to b7 goes after the b5 pawn, and now bishop to a4. You could also maybe consider giving it up and advancing the f-pawn, but it's not a problem. We can even show it if you guys are into lines. Rook captures on b5, pawn to f6, and now after, let's say, some checking moves, let's say you go here, knight to e4, checking d3, you will capture it, and you don't really care. Rook captures. This is a draw. So after rook to b7, bishop to a4, again Gukesh trying everything he can to somehow win this. King to f3, f5 now. We have king to f4, f6. We have knight to e4, and now bishop to c2. Putting pressure on the knight, but knight to d6. The cleanest way to play. Rook to d8 attacks the knight, and now king to e5. We have bishop to b3, controlling the f7 square, but now knight to f7. Again, the problem is the players are so low on time, and they've been playing for hours and hours now. But even pretty much any move you play here is winning. Even the tricky looking rook captures on b5, because after f7 you just give up the knight, and this is still a draw. But yeah, after bishop to b3, knight to f7, and now, well, you can capture. Gukesh still trying somehow to win this. Rook to d5 check, king captures on f6. We have king to d2, rook to b6, and now bishop to c4. Rook to d6 now, forcing a trade. King to c3, rook captures on d5, bishop captures, and knight to d6. Now it's equal material, and of course it's a draw. King b4, knight captures on b5. Ding sacrifices the knight, but of course it doesn't matter. King captures, and now pawn to a6 with check. King captures on a6, and after 72 moves we have a draw by insufficient material. The best kind of draw, it was a fighting game, and I mean, what a spectacular game. So Gukesh really outplayed the Ding in the opening. He outplayed him in the game, but you can see how resilient Ding is. And this for everyone saying that the Ding will just lose, Ding will just roll over and pass away. Not likely. Ding is here to fight. Ding is here to stay. And by playing this game, he's shown just that. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he prepares for the next game. This is absolutely incredible, and this is the game I want to see in a World Chess Championship match. Doesn't matter who wins, but if it's such a fight, then this is the one that I want to see. Okay, I'm not gonna keep it going any longer because it's been a very long video, but yeah, absolutely sensational. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I mean, really remarkable stuff. I would like to thank David Gasparian, Ahmed Khalil, Casey Vance, Robert Palande, and Gerhard Henkelmann for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. And the first link in the description below, the good people at the Internet Chess Club have some good news. They are sponsoring Faustino Oro, the Messi of chess. We've shown so many games of him, and there's a very nice article waiting for you. First link in the description below, so check it out. You're gonna have a great time. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you soon.